Hey, yeah. You see, I'm a bit stupid and kind of crazy, you know what I mean? And I got a lot of dumb ideas up here in the skull of mine. So yeah, I think I decided just like 2 seconds ago. Hey, you know what? I'm gonna make like Danny's log, like a log for like all the dumb ideas I have in my head, like be it for like games or like shows and junk like I'd like to build, and stuff like that, because like most likely I'm never gonna do any of that. I'm never gonna make anything. Like I'm too lazy for that. I got no like I can make up all the ideas in my head, but I can't like put it anywhere. So I'm thinking, it's funny, like you're supposed to when you're recording things, you're supposed to look in here into the camera, but like I only look at myself in the video. So you see me like right here, I'm looking off to the side when I should be looking right there. Yeah. Anyway, so what am I gonna talk about first? I don't know. I got a couple ideas. Like we do Fallout. Fallout. I got a whole show idea on Fallout, but I don't know. Sure, let's just do Fallout. We'll do Fallout. Why not? Why the hell not? So yeah, I've been writing like a Fallout thing for like it started like back in 2017, I think. I don't really know. I was in the seventh grade when I first ever started out. I was playing a lot of Fallout New Vegas, and my cousin, he made like a character in the game, and it was a complete accident. Like I just told him, hey, make anything you want, just make some garbage. And he made like this guy, he had like glasses, and he was like an assassin or something, and like some beard too. And I was like, yeah. And then he left. It was like only one day. He didn't even like play for a long period of time. And so yeah, I started messing around with this guy for a little bit, and yeah, and then I came up with this name for him. His name is Hick, and the thing I got that name from, it was originally from like a font, I believe. It was like a font called Hickory or something. And I made it for another character, which is like a dumber one, a while back. And then I gave him that name. And I found out like a couple days later, like after I gave him that name, like his name Hick was an insult for like Southern people who are real stupid. A notification just popped up. We're gonna close that up. Bye bye notification. But yeah, and I found out that was an insult for like dumb Southerners. And so yeah, I just kind of kept it because like I can't come up with anything. So yeah, and then like I started this bacon show series after that. A lot of it was just dumb and stupid garbage. But I feel like now I have a nice cohesive plot for the Fallout thing. I'll probably go in depth into each episode, like into another Danny's log later, or some garbage like that. But yeah, it's we'll start with the general plot synopsis. So the main character of the show is a guy named Hick, as I just explained. He's this very mysterious feller. Not mysterious, I guess you could say. He's a survivalist, wasteland wanderer. The show takes place in Seattle, and he's just wandering about. He doesn't like this group of people called the NCR. He doesn't really like anybody, and he's just chilling. And the first episode that you ever actually see him, which is like episode 0. Episode 0 is like, if I were to make the show, it would be like free for everyone to see on YouTube or some garbage like that. They'd be really short, and it'd just give you like some general background information to like characters and junk like that. Anyway, and so then he meets this girl named Cherry. He gets captured by this mafia boss, and like the daughter of the boss of this mafia guy is a girl named Cherry, and he gets convinced by her. I guess you'd say maid or someone. This I'm going all over the place. Point being, he finds some girl and he agrees to take her to Seattle. And then the first season of the show, which is like 10 parts, is about them just getting to Seattle. And that's like in each thing, it's like a 5-part series. First part is just them getting to Seattle. Second part is they're in Seattle and they have to do some plot for this other person character and junk like that. And I'm just spitballing because like I'm probably not even gonna upload this garbage if I'm being completely honest. But I'm just gonna go in depth related to like the whole lore, the whole idea I got into it of the Fallout thing. So the show takes place in Seattle, as I said, and the big we'll just go before the war. So everyone knows in Fallout, it takes place in like 2076 or something like that, and then the bombs fell, and everything was very like goes into nuclear depression, whatever. So our series picks up the first bit of lore. It starts in the very beginning with these people called the Brotherhood of Steel, and they are down south in like California of some sort. And these people, they decide they're going to head up north into Seattle, because Seattle before the war was this like city of the future. It was like it was the city of the future. It was had major technological advancements. Its culture was vastly different from the rest of the U.S. of A. In fact, there was like the music in the show would be very different from other parts of the Fallout series because during before the war, Seattle had these very conflicting cultures of like these people who were like very pro-war, wanted to go to against communist China and take them down, and they were like they symbolized sort of the '80s big punk rock sort of thing that's going around here, like bands like I forgot, I can't remember for the life of me, like L.A. Guns, stuff like that, you know. And like that heavy rock junk, and then you have like a much more peaceful '70s type of people who were like more, hey, let's not blow up planet, yeah, so epic, man. And yeah, that's where all the music came from. So anyway, so vastly technologically advanced culture and technology everywhere in Seattle, and so the Brotherhood of Steel heads there because they want to capture the technology and take over. But once they get there, they suddenly realize that hey, all these technological people that were there are gone. It's filled to nothing but the brim of tribalist people. Tribals that surrounded the states of Oregon and Idaho, and then the deeper part of Washington is just these raider bands and gangs who are just like killing each other over and over again. And the Brotherhood of Steel, they set up shop there for a little bit, and they're just getting destroyed really by all these raider gangs because they're not really there to enforce anything. My phone's falling. They're not really there to enforce anything. And then things are going pretty well for them for a little bit until eventually this part of the council, this woman, she gets really upset with how things are going, and she decides, hey, you know what we're gonna do? I'm just gonna overthrow this council because these people are dumb, and we can. Well, okay, I'm forgetting the big point of the story here, is that this one person on their council of elders and junk inside of the Brotherhood of Steel, she gets word of these old technologies that were to be developed before the war by this sort of war company. They were trying to like create super soldiers and robots that like would fight in the war and junk like that. And they worked on these junk in bunkers. Except the war hit and they all got trapped inside their bunkers with all their gear in it. And she gets word of this and she's like, hey, let's go find this junk and so we can just take out all these raiders and just enforce our own like view upon everyone here in Seattle. Let's just take back the world or something like that. And everyone else in the room, she was like, bro, we're not supposed to do that, man. We're supposed to take technology from people so they don't kill themselves with it. You know what I mean? And she's just like, it's nerf for nothing, baby. And kills everyone there. And it's a big uproar. She becomes the new head elder and really starts just being a bitch to everyone in Seattle. Like, she starts all the raider gangs that were once being just like, you know, just bullying them for the most part. They're suddenly getting bullied back by the Brotherhood of Steel, getting like taken over, junk like that. And they're just trying to. And what really reason why she was attacking all these raider clans is that they went to one of these bunkers in the city. Not city. It was like went to one of these bunkers, and they're like, "Hey, how do we get in here? Because there's these pass cards they need to get in. These very hidden pass codes to get in there." And all of them are like trapped in the bunker or like they don't know where they are. So they're just going over everywhere trying to find these key cards so they can go into the bunkers and take over Seattle. And all these raider gangs are sitting here like, bruh, we used to be killing each other and like looting everything, but now we're just getting killed by the Brotherhood of Steel. And they're not very happy about that. So a bunch of these raiders and bandits, they just get together and they're like, you know what, let's just go to Seattle where the Brotherhood of Steel are held up and let's just go and kill them all. Let's take back our city and junk like that. Now this is a dumb plan because these people like are just in leather armor with like pipe pistols and junk, and they don't know what the hell they're doing. But lucky for them, they did get some help from these elite group of people called the 16 Soldiers. These are like these wandering band of people who have been going across America. They started like around in like Montana area, stuff like that, and they've been riding around on horseback down here to Seattle. And one guy in this gang, black feller, I'm not racist, okay? That's why I made him black, you know. But he's like, the big raid by these raiders to go and attack the Brotherhood of Steel is about to happen, and they go in there and they're about to get killed. And this one guy in the gang, he's like telling his boss, like in the 16 Soldiers, hey, this is like not really much of a meaningful life for us to be running around doing jack shit. Like, what are we doing? What's the point of us doing this junk? And so he convinces them, hey, we're going to go help out these guys, and we're going to go fight back the Brotherhood of Steel. So because of the 16 Soldiers' efforts, the Raiders win, and they take back Seattle from the Brotherhood of Steel. And the Brotherhood of Steel is vastly crippled, and they go and hide in one of their top bunkers over in like a very secluded area of Washington. And then all of a sudden, like all these bandits and raiders are like, yeah, we did it. We got rid of these guys. Now we can go back to killing each other again. And now they're all suddenly very worried because, like, hey, they're about to go and kill each other. And so they're kind of worried on who's going to betray who first. And then the main leader of the 16 Soldiers comes in and says, hey, everybody, wait a second. If we just go back to, like, doing the way we were doing before, we're just going to, like, have another Brother Steel pop up. And, like, that's not going to be any fun for anybody. Like, they're going to come encroaching on our fun. So let's just make sure no one else comes and takes Seattle. And so they form their own little group called the Inner Circle. And this is actually a name I got from, it's a Fallout fan page called, like, Fallout Forgotten Waste or something like that. It's like a bunch of fan page of fun things, like people who wanted to go into the Seattle area in the Northern Commonwealth, what they were calling it. And I really like the name The Inner Circle. Big problem with The Inner Circle's original mentality, though, is that they were just, like, essentially a discount Minutemen. Like, hey, we're nice guys, we want to rule over Seattle and junk like that. I'm sitting here like, bro, let's make these people flawed. So the new Inner Circle is essentially like anarchist in a way, in that they don't have any rule over anybody in Seattle, but they still kind of, they don't want anyone to come in here and encroaching on them in Seattle. So they just make sure no one, like raiders or people, are coming in and killing everybody in Seattle, so they can just continue, you know, getting drugs, shooting guns, and like having fun in the wasteland and junk like that. And since Seattle is such a, you know, technologically advanced place, so there's good stuff in it, many people start flocking to the city, and Seattle just becomes like one of the biggest cities in the world, essentially, even though it's very destroyed. So then what happens next is that one of these people in the 16 Soldiers is a guy named Nathaniel. Now, Nathaniel, he's a real piece of shit. He's kind of a bit of a sadist, something like that. And he used to be the medic on their team. But when the Inner Circle was formed, a lot of the 16 Soldiers, they were either killed in the battle beforehand, or they left, or they stayed. Nathaniel was one of the guys who left, and he went down to Oregon. Or, no, he went to Idaho. And it was these people called the Grey Crows. There's really tribalistic people. They don't really know what the hell they're doing. And that's where, and he went there and he was like, hey guys, you don't know anything about medicine. I can help you out, but on one condition. I get to stay here and get shelter. And this is where he also gets all that coochie in the gang, you know. So yeah, he got all the whores of the Grey Crows. And that's what Nathaniel did. He was just banging whores for the most part. And that's what he did for a little bit. And what really started to happen, the reason why they hired him in the first place is that during this time, when Nathaniel went to Idaho, people called the NCR had recently decided to start going into Oregon to try and, you know, get some stuff back. And yeah, that's why I was saying earlier, the Grey Crows are in Oregon. They're this big tribalistic group in Oregon. That's where they were for the most part. And in Fallout 2, they were like it's the very tribalistic area. That's how they show it in Fallout 2, because there's just cannibals up there in the north. So anyway, so a very tribalistic area, and the NCR, they want to come in and like they want to reclaim Portland and head up to Seattle if they can. Except they're being held back by all these tribalistic warriors and junk. So this small little gang of Black Crows are like, hey, we have no idea how to deal with like bullets. We've kind of been shooting bows and arrows and pipe pistols our whole life. So they hire this medical guy named Nathaniel. You know, he starts banging whores and junk like that. And they stay in Oregon for a little bit. Except one of these, you know, coochie warrior whores that he was sleeping with eventually had a child, and she didn't tell him at all about this, and he got really upset with her. And he gave birth to this child, and he killed the woman. He killed this woman, and he was gonna kill the kid too. And Mr. Nathaniel, except the main leader of the Grey Crows, was like, dude, you can't. We have warriors here. We kind of have a big old war going on with the NCR. Like, I don't know what you're thinking here. We kind of have to like keep fighting these people. We need more soldiers. So Nathaniel said, okay, whatever. I don't even care. And so he's very upset with the child, and then they go on about that for a good 5 years. The kid, he starts watching all these people, trying to learn the tactics of like how they operate, how they fight in this tribalistic area. And so eventually they start going to this like hidden camp, like near NCR bases, so they can start doing these raids and junk that are secretive. And this kid that Nathaniel gave birth to, he didn't give birth to him, but essentially he created, he finds a flare gun. And he's like very upset, and he launches into the air. And the NCR, they're like, hey, what's this flare? Let's go check this out. Yeah, it didn't end well for the Grey Crows after that. They started getting fucked up, bro. Big battle. And Mr. Nathaniel, he's in like his tent, his medical tent. He's like freaking out everywhere. There's people coming in with bullet wounds every single second. He doesn't know how to treat him. And the whole time he's just like yelling at the kid. yelling at him, saying, "Hey, you stupid hick! You know, you raised by these tribals, you stupid hick! Because of you, all this junk is going on." And then and he keeps yelling at him. He like slammed the kid's head on the side of the table, something like that. And then like the NCR soldier comes in, shoots him. Uh-oh, so sad. And so then the NCR soldiers, they grab the kid and they start bringing him to their refugee camp called Josephtown. And then they ask the kid, "Hey, what's your name exactly?" Because he never actually got a name from Nathaniel or anybody. He was just called like boy or kid or something like that. And so he says his name's Hick. And from here on out in the series, Hick here, he has this sort of self-hatred for himself, and that is manifested in the image of his father Nathaniel, because of how much he hated him. And so throughout the entire series, you would see when Nathaniel was first introduced, he's kind of like seemed to be like almost as like an associate of Hick, like he used to give him jobs, something like that. That's just to pick up on. Except it turns out like halfway at this point in the series, it turns out, hey, he's not actually really there. Hick's just seeing him. But that's for later. I'll talk. I shouldn't be spoiling that. But like, who the hell's gonna even watch this video? And who the hell's even? Am I even gonna make the Fallout series? I don't even know. So yeah. So then this gets deep into the Hick backstory, and this is like all of the reveal in part 4 of the series. Like I said, there'd be 5 parts to the Fallout TV show, and this will all be revealed in part 4 of Hick essentially doing this junk. So I'm gonna we're gonna forget that for a little bit, and for the main, I kind of spoiled a lot there, but anyway, I'll get into when we get to part 4. I'll explain more about why Hick. His backstory and why he is the way he is. So, the series picks up with episode 0, and Hick is on his bike, and he moves into this small little town, and that's currently being occupied by the NCR. Now, Hick does not like the NCR. We don't really know why yet. He just doesn't really like them. And he's there, and while we're in there, we get a glimpse of these people from the inner circle who show up, and they start talking to the NCR people, saying, "Hey, what exactly are you doing here? You know, like, this is our place. You can't really be coming in here." And the NCR are here because after the loss of Hoover Dam, because they did lose the Hoover Dam, one way or the other, and the president that came in after them is very like his main point he was coming in on was saying, "Hey guys, we used to have all our troops up in Oregon. Like, let's go back up there and let's finish the job we started. Let's go claim back Seattle." Since all these people who like had got sold up on New Vegas had just gotten screwed over, and so he wanted to like promise them something else. But they're already very skeptical with him, so he's like, he either can capture Seattle or it's game over. But many of the NCR soldiers at this place, they don't know that yet, so they're just telling this inner circle officer guy, "Hey, we just been told to start up here, get our traders coming into this state." Now, this inner circle member, he doesn't really want the NCR here at all. In fact, he just kind of wants to like get out of Seattle and Washington in general. So, in order to do that, he gets Hick, who just got into a bar fight and he was arrested, and he's put in like this jail cell. And he goes to Hick and he's like, "Hey, I'll get you out of here, but you have to go and do something for me, and it'll result in the NCR, getting out of here." And Hickey's like, I don't like the NCR. I don't want him here in Washington. Why not? Why the hell not? And so he goes and does this thing, but this thing he is hired to do is he essentially makes some raiders very upset with them. And that big old raider gang then comes to here, and due to some sabotage by the inner circle, the whole town starts getting destroyed for the most part. And this is like actually at the beginning of the episode 0. It would open on the song "Stop Children, What's That Sound?" And it would be like you'd be seeing this NCR soldier looking around this burned down city, as like he's watching these raiders and inner circle members getting killed by somebody, and then he finally finds out who it is, and it's Hick. Hick gets very upset with being betrayed by the inner circle and the NCR, and he starts killing all these guys. And at the very end of the episode, he says, "You know what? Forget this. I'm going north." And that's where episode 0 ends off. It'd be very short. It'd be very brief. The only reason episode 0 is be here, and I probably am going to work on that more, episode 0. But it's really just so in the next episode you'll see. So next episode picks up, and we actually get started on our first the first real story, the real story of the thing. And you meet this girl named Cherry. Now Cherry is a girl who's the daughter of a mafia boss. I said that earlier, but they live out in Spokane, in the mountains of Spokane anyway, an old ski resort. And her father is a mafia member who makes a lot of guns and weaponry, and he sells it to raiders and other people who just want his guns and junk like that. And he's talking, and how the story episode starts out is that Cherry is in his office, her her father's office, and they're discussing something, but we don't really know what it is. All we know is that she's very stressed out, and he's kind of upset. And throughout the course of the episode, she has these flashbacks to her childhood. The first one we ever see is of her mother leaving her and to her father. And then another flashback, we see more and more of her being very upset and not knowing what to do, and learning from her maid, essentially, of the home, who teaches her this. Haven't come up with a name for the nurse, maid, whatever you want to call her yet, but she takes care of her and teaches her how to read throughout most of the series here. And then this keeps going on and on. We start getting more and more flashbacks, and we find out that Cherry actually lost her father a lot of money, and that he's very upset about that, because what she did essentially is that she gave a paycheck, or that he was going to give to somebody to get his firearms or something like that, and she gave that to her mother, essentially, in this case, the nurse, and to escape. Except during this, and then her father is essentially a very abusive guy. He's hurt her in the past, and he's essentially just planning on scarring her right here in this scene as well. But during this episode 1, as they're going through this detail more and more, they start hearing something downstairs in their hotel ski resort. That's where he stays. And they start hearing some action going on downstairs. They don't remind it at first, but then he starts getting grander towards the final events before he actually harms Cherry. And they find out that there's a gunman inside their building coming for him. And so then Cherry's father, of course, in an attempt to try and protect himself, uses her as a human shield, and essentially he's holding a gun to her head, using her as a human shield. And then the door to his office breaks down, and guess who's there? It's Hick. So then that's the first episode, big reveal. Oh my gosh, it's that guy from episode 0. We've seen him before. Wow, so crazy, so wacky. So then in episode 2, we see Hick again showing up, and we see actually what has happened since episode 0. It's been a couple weeks since episode 0. He's moved to Spokane, and he comes to this snowy area, and he's just really here because he's not going anywhere. He's just going wherever the wind takes him, I guess. He has no means of going anywhere. And he shows up in this bar. He gets into another big old fight with some people who try to get his junk off of him, and he gets arrested by the Mafia gang again. And he gets put into this prison again, and then the maid, the nurse that Cherry gave the money to escape, actually shows up again, and she tells Hick, hey, I know how you can escape. And he says, I can't go anywhere because they took the keys to my motorcycle. And she's like, well, actually, I know where they took that, and it's in the office to the main guy's thing. Except it's being held by some girl of some sort. So essentially what she's doing is she's tricking Hick into saving Cherry as well. And so he says, fine, just tell me where the keys are, and something like that. So then he goes going on his killing spree, and he gets to the top floor, and he breaks in the door, and then Cherry's there, of course. And then Hick, of course, And this is the big plan here. I don't know exactly. This is a difficult scene, because originally my first ever take is what would happen here is that Hick takes a bullet to the side. He shoots himself in the toe, essentially, and he falls over, because he can't feel pain. That's another explanation that'll be revealed in part 4, but anyway. And so then the big Mafia boss guy's like, wow, this happened, so how strange is this? He just tumbled over or fell. No, actually what he does is he throws a knife at him, at the pillar that he's standing behind, and then he gets shot in the chest, of course, and he falls over. And then the big Mafia dad boss is like, oh, wow, he's fallen over. And then Cherry takes the knife and starts stabbing him repeatedly. Now, I don't really like that take anymore, because, I don't know, Cherry is not supposed to be this extremely violent person yet in the series. She's very fearful of the world and from being in this abusive relationship with her father and junk like that. She's hopeful and she likes to be sarcastic and junk like that to try and hide from that fear and pain. But that's not exactly what I want to do. So point being, essentially, is that her father gets heavily injured and they both escape with each other. Now, Cherry, Hick doesn't even want to bring Cherry along with her, but she doesn't know where else to go. She just starts following him. And they make it down to the garage where his motorcycle is. He plugs it in, and she hops on with him, and he's, completely surprised, what are you doing with me? And they get into the big old escape. They get out of the city and junk like that, and they finally arrive downtown, out of the town. And she's just like, wow, we did it. They're so excited. And, Cherry is, sorry, my phone just fell again for cry-eye. And now Cherry, out of, how, happy she is to be free of him, she gives Hick a hug, essentially. And Hick is not very, happy about this response to her. And he kind of freaks out, pushes her off, and says to get out of here. And she's like, no, I can't go anywhere. I don't have anywhere else to go. And he's like, well, you better leave, or else I'm going to shoot you. And he pulls out, Nerf for nothing, baby. Ah! And he's like, get out of here, Chief. And she's like, well, bruh, I'm gonna either go back to the snow-infested hellhole if my dad ever wants to kill me now because I just, like, hurt my father, or am I gonna stay out here or I'm gonna get killed anyway? So, like, bruh, you're not giving me any good options here. And then he's like, you know what, fine, I guess I can't really shoot you. It doesn't really matter. And episode 2 ends with him just, finding out his bike's damaged. He can't go anywhere, and he's just gonna set up camp. And that, it doesn't really matter where that Cherry stays, that he hopes she leaves in the morning or something like that. Just giving us false hope for the series, really. So, yeah. Now, this is a big problem I have with the series I'm having right here is the opening. Is that the big point here of these first 3 episodes is for Cherry to, and Hick to, become partners and agree to go to Seattle. Except Hick's character is that he doesn't really want to be with anybody right now. I'll explain more as to why maybe I should just explain it now. Essentially, Hick did something extremely messed up a while ago, and he doesn't really believe that he is deserving of anything besides he doesn't even deserve death, because what he did was so severe, the punishment of death would not be, grand enough for what he did. So he's been essentially just wandering around the wasteland, as if it's a prison, how he's just serving his sentence until eventually he gets killed by some stray bullet or something. And he doesn't really want to be with anybody like Cherry because he doesn't really believe he's a good person anyway. And he also doesn't believe there's any good left in the world because of how damaged he did. I know this sounds like extremely edgy junk, but in the show, his dialogue is not like this, Sonic OC type of garbage. No, he's a lot more sarcastic. They have some good back and forth, him and Cherry. And essentially, the whole point that I have here is that he doesn't want to be with really anybody. So it's really hard to, give him a reason to stay with Cherry. And, the original, plan I could have come up with, that a lot of people come up with in these types of series, is that maybe he has, a job he has to perform. Look at The Mandalorian. He has a job, and he has to, rescue Baby Yoda or some garbage like that, and that gets him to, care for him. But here, he doesn't really have that option. He doesn't really have it. So it's kind of forced, these first episodes. I don't have to work it out. I have to figure it out, what we're going to do here. But, yeah. This thing keeps falling over, and it's honestly kind of funny, So anyway, yeah. Check this out. Platinum chip. Yeah, I know. I'm pretty cool. Let's see what card I draw. Bam. Specularities. Yeah. That's pretty cool. I like Fallout New Vegas if you didn't know. So, you may be wondering, Danny, why... I don't even know who in the hell would watch these videos. It's 27 minutes long so far. Now, you may be wondering, Danny, who in the hell's going to watch this? Well, I don't think anybody. I'm just putting this log out here because, I just like to have this data out there. Of all that data, of all these ideas I have in my head out here. It may just be ramblings, and I have already documents of all the junk I have that's a lot more, properly put together. I may just link that in the description. But yeah, this is just what I'm spitballing. So episode 3 starts up, and it starts up in this very fun manner. It plays the song Mr. Sandman. Now, I hate this song. It's overused by so many people nowadays, but I think here it's pretty fun. It's got this fun upbeat. Cherry's trying to win over Hick essentially by making him some breakfast, and she finds some gecko eggs, and they try cooking that junk up. And they're chilling, they're having a good time, except she eventually gets attacked by a bunch of geckos, leading them back to camp. Hick wakes up, he starts freaking out, and he starts bang, 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 shoots all the geckos, and he's like, bruh, you dummy, why'd you go and do that? You trying to win me over, some garbage like that. They have a fun back and forth. I don't want to come off as they're this edgy, dumb story. But, the dialogue between the two, I want them to be, some fun, back and forths here and there, some sarcasm between the two of them. That'd be fun, overall. I'm just giving, the plot synopsis of each thing. Maybe I'll, make a document of all the dialogue, but I think that's just kind of cringe. I have to go through, showing your dialogue to people. So that's just whatever. Anyway, so eventually this big mother gecko shows up. And it's this bigger gecko than all the other ones, these mutant geckos that they were fighting. And it starts biting Hick in the arm. And he's trying to reach for his gun, but he can't get it. So he starts asking Cherry, hey, go grab my gun in this big heat situation. But she freezes. She doesn't know what to do, since he's never been in a situation like this. And Hick is forced to kill it with a knife or something. He just kills it, and he tells her, hey, bro, if you want to try and survive out here, you can't be freezing like that. You got to act, or else you're going to get killed. And that's I read somewhere how comics are written, is that you have this call to action, and the protagonist or someone, they don't automatically want to do such a thing. And that's Cherry here. Hick is telling her, hey, you have to change in this manner to stop freezing and actually act upon actions. And she's saying, no, I don't want to do that. And then throughout the whole point of this episode, she's going to learn that lesson at the very end and grow. That's like the whole point of each entire part. Part one's heavily focused on this, with Cherry learning a lesson each time. But anyway, point being, so she says, whatever, forget that junk. And so Hicks says, you know what, forget you, I'm leaving, bye, bye, bye. And she's like saying, hey, don't leave, or something like that. They have like, she's really trying to beg him to not leave her out here in the middle of the wasteland. And it's not like some begging, like, oh, please, tears coming out of your eyes, like some Instagram follower or something like that. No, it's like more sarcastic, something like that. Except it turns out his motorcycle doesn't really go anywhere because, uh-oh, out of gas, bro. It's like that Bugs Bunny cartoon. Out of gas. I must be on cocaine right now or something. Anyway. So, yeah. Anyway. So then they find out, okay, we gotta go get some gasoline, and Cherry just keeps following Hick, and like in the first episode, he explains he can't really kill her or scare her off or anything. So he really just has to wait till he get his motorcycle fixed. And then he'll be able to, like, get out of here away from her. And says, I just heard someone coming out the stairs. And if I hear someone coming here talking to myself, that's going to be embarrassing as hell. So we got to be careful. Anyway. So, what's going on now? So then they get to this big old oil rig, and it has a bunch of gasoline at it. They start going from gas station to gas station. Nothing's really coming up. It's all dry. But they find this big old oil tank area in Spokane. It's a big city. And this big oil rig, and they start going there, and he's like, hey, and what is the world is wrong with this place? And then ping, some type of harpoon or something like sticks out, grabs his leg, and they both get pulled up in display of this big old raider thing, because it turns out this big oil rig has been inhabited by raiders and people like that. And so bunch of raiders and something like that. And what these raiders do is that they hold competitions from the caravan people they find on the street, and they make them fight to the death with their other people. And that's what Hick and Cherry are being put into this position for. And so then Hick and Cherry, of course, they have no weapons. They get stripped of all their gear, and they get thrown to this big old arena, and they're forced to fight once again. So then this is like my favorite scene. I always like because all the fight scenes, for the most part, I like to have them have music. And this one plays Footloose. And, you know, it's a bunch of fun. You know, Hick's going around like fucking John Wick and all these people and junk like that. It's a real fun song, of course. And then in this fight, essentially, you know, he's just, like, taking stop signs and hitting people over the head like that. And Cherry, she's narrowly surviving, like, dodging people, like, on the... It's very funny for her, anyway. And then this big scene comes up in the middle of this fight where, essentially, a big guy in power armor shows up, and he grabs Hick, and he starts choking him out. And this is just an idea, I thought... Because this is a fun idea I've just come up with for, like... But if you're being choked out, what if you were just to go limp, right? Like, the people who are choking you, they're just waiting for you to go and do that, right? So what if you just do it early? Then they'll just drop you, and then you'll be safe. So that's what Hick does. And he's, like, asking Cherry, like, in the middle while he's being choked here. The same exact situation with the gecko. Like, hand him a gun, hand him something. So she freezes. She can't really do anything about it. And then once again, he is knocked down. It's supposed to be a scene where Cherry feels like she's all alone, like she has no one else to help her. But then he comes back. He wakes up from this big old fake out, stabs the guy with the power armor, and then uses his flamethrower and goes... Big action scene. And yeah, so they win the big old fight, and they're like the champions for the scene. And yeah, and so they both get split up for a second, Hick and Cherry, you know, and they get brought to like this concession stand with the Raiders and stuff like that. And Cherry gets brought to like this cosmetic person of the Raiders, because they're like, hey, you got to be like presentable for our big show we're coming up with here. And then they give her this red hair, because originally when I designed Cherry's character, it was in Fallout 4, and the red hair they used there is just so like oppressively red. It's not even funny, really. So like, this kind of would explain it, give me a reason, like, have her dye her hair red, sort of. I like that design. Cherry, you know. I don't know, I just like the design. I'll pull the picture right now of her. Anyway, so what do you think? So yeah, and she speaks to this raider, and why she's so nice to her, and she's like, well, I'm just out here to survive, really. I'm not really, like, trying to kill people. This kind of adds more world building to the raiders. They're not heartless people or anything like that. And then they go into their final round of fighting, and this is kind of the part of every single episode, because I can come out with a couple of scenes in each episode, in the beginning and end, and the big twist in them. But I can't really, like, write the in-between portion of each thing. So, I'm just kind of spitballing here for part one. So, anyway, Hick and Cherry, they get into this final fight, and Cherry comes out the winner, however, and Hick gets thrown away. And she is allowed the option to leave or something like that. And this is the big culmination of the scenes before, where she's like afraid to freeze or something like that, to go back and help Hick or something like that. And she's like, hey, I'm going to be all alone out here. Hick's the only one I know who can actually help me. And so she goes back and tries to help him. And this is the big scene where essentially he's like, she has to act, you know, not mess up. and she saves him, and he goes on a killing spree, gets all his guns back and stuff like that, takes down all the raiders, things, big old fight scene, and they both leave. And then there's like this fun interaction both of them have, or they're both like, joking around, having fun. He thanks her for helping him out, and she says, I guess this is it then, you're not coming with me. And so Hicks is like, he's very like struggling in the scene because he wants to be with someone else. He wants to have that feeling of affection. When Cherry in episode 2 gave him that hug, it was a reaction he was so hostile to because it was, he enjoyed it, of course. Everybody enjoys, being appreciated by another person, except he doesn't want to feel that emotion because he doesn't feel like he has deemed that. He's not a good person. He's an evil, soulless, heartless bastard. That's what he believes. And so why should he feel emotion like caring for another person or something like that? So he's very hostile to Cherry, and he's like, but here in the scene he's very struggling because he would like to stay with Cherry. He would like to be that way, but due to his mind trying to convince him that he shouldn't be that way, you know how it is. And so he then instead like gives Cherry like a little pack, like, hey, this is how you survive, find a caravan, give him some caps, they'll take you to a local settlement. And that's how the episode's supposed to end. It seems like he's leaving her, but he drives away on his motorcycle. But then like halfway through, he shows that he's opposite on his motorcycle when he sees this guy, who you would have seen this on episode 0, I forgot to mention this, but Hick would see this guy, which is Nathaniel, his father, like I mentioned earlier. He's this vision, this apparition. The audience is supposed to believe he's actually there, but he's not. It's Hick's manifestation of his self-hatred. Throughout the series, whenever he's having these conflicting moments where he's like going against what he has been going for like 4 years, he's been experiencing these like, I can't be around people, I can't like care for other people or anything like that. Everyone's bad, okay. And then this guy named Nathaniel will show up, his manifestation of his self-hatred for all the junk he did before, and he convinced him, hey, this is what we should do. Except in this scene, Hicks like stops on the side of the road. When he sees him, they have a little conversation about what he should be doing. He's like very upset because he's conflicted on what to do. And so then he decides, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna go back to Cherry. He wakes her up, she's like sitting at a campfire, and he like tells her, hey, we're going? Alright, I don't even care. I'm gonna take you to Seattle. Okay, that's it. And I'm gonna drop you off. We're not partners or anything like that, okay? You're not gonna complain. You're not gonna have any tolerance at all for that junk, okay? You mess up once, it's game over. You're done. And so then they both agree, and that's where the series left off. Now, once again, this is like I was talking about earlier, how I was struggling, saying, hey, how exactly are we gonna like pull off these two coming together and working together as partners? And I don't really know there. It's just something I'm gonna have to figure out and write through, I guess. But that's essentially the first 3 episodes in a nutshell, like just in a nutshell. Cherry's living in a mafia guy. Hick breaks her out. She tries to stay with him. He says no. They fight off some raiders. He drives away. He comes back for her and says, fine, we'll live. Okay, that's the big synopsis of the first 3 episodes. And this is where the series starts to actually pick up into where it's more like Hick and Cherry going on fun adventures and enjoying themselves. And junk like that, going from lesson to lesson. So in episode 4, this is like the first like fun thing they're going through. Hick and Cherry, they're on the side of the road, and they're looking for some supplies and junk like that to eat. They have no real food and water, and they get jumped by some raiders, and a big gunfight ensues or something like that. Not a big one, but a small little skirmish, and Cherry gets grazed in the leg with a bullet, and she starts freaking out, like, jeez, I got shot. And no, don't do like any Rick and Doherty reference there. Jeez! If anybody does that garbage, anybody does any garbage, they're like doing like some Morty impersonation or a Rick impersonation, end your goddamn life. Like, I'm not even smoking you. I have no tolerance for Rick and Morty references. That's garbage. Anyway, point being here, fucking Chicken Cherry, they find out she gets shot, and in order to shut her up, Hick hits her with a Med-X, which in the Fallout series is a painkiller. Very intensive painkiller. And Cherry's never done any like hardcore drug before, and so she kind of wants a little. She like starts reaching for more Med-X, but he says no, you can't be doing any more of that garbage. Okay, that's like a limited supply here, and that's sort of the first implication of what the episode's going to be about, which is the episode's about like drugs and like finding bliss in like ignorance from the reality around you, like just ignoring reality and stuff like that for drugs and junk like that. So they're struggling. They don't have any food and water. They can't find anything in these old abandoned cars. But they did find out these like 2 strange fellers called E.T. and E.Q. And these very strange people. Like they're essentially like the Vape Nation meme. That guy right here. Like he's that guy essentially. And he shows up and he's like talking about, yo man, we got this sick cave going on back in like our base of operations. You gotta come check it out. We got all the food and water you could ever want there, man. And so, like, they ignorantly says, okay, fine, whatever. You got some food and water, we'll get it. And so they go travel to their base, and it's this underground area in the sewers of all these like people like this freaking out, doing. My thing just went weird there. Doing drugs and junk, partying to music. There's this fun little scene where like Hank and Cherry, they start doing this song. It would be this running jag, I think, in the series. What I would do is it's to place this song. I'll play it right here. Maybe I won't play it right here. I don't know how I'm gonna do this. Maybe I'll just upload this raw to YouTube or some garbage like that. But it's this song. I forgot. Give me a second. I'm pulling it up. I'm gonna pull it up. You're all gonna be like, wow, Danny, that's such a brilliant music choice. You're really like a genius. I know, right? You have my Fallout playlist. You can check it out on my YouTube channel. It's a Fallout playlist. I think it's public. I don't know. But it has all the music in order from each episode and how they would be played. So yeah, right here. And it's this like really smooth like guy playing some music, and he's like swooning Cherry, and it's just gonna be this running joke for the series of like everybody, like all these weird fellas wanting to like sleep with Cherry, and she'll make a joke about this like in part 4 or something like that. Anyway, point being, that's some running joke we'll talk about later. So they have some fun music. They're all goofing around. They find some supplies, and Cherry starts taking more drugs and junk like that. Not hardcore stuff, but some hits of Jet in the Fallout series and junk like that. Until eventually they win a competition or something. I don't know what they would win it for. Some type of competition occurs, and Cherry wins some elite luxury like private lounge. And Hick's like looking at her like, you know what? If she wants to stay here, that's fine. I don't even care. I'll leave. So then he's starting to leave, but he finds out, oh shoot, dang it, my keys. Cherry swiped them off me earlier. I gotta go get my keys for my bike, or else I can't go anywhere. And so then he starts going to ET and EQ because he's like, hey, where's Cherry? I gotta find her. And he's like, oh, they went to the private lounge area, bro, where we hit her up with something. Fine. And he's just like, well, what'd you give her? And it's this radiation drug. In Fallout 4, they talk about this. There's a character called Hannigan or something like that. I forgot his name. But he takes this radiation drug, and he turned into a ghoul. Except the stuff ET and EQ are using, bro, it's like intense feral ghoul levels radiation. Like, your brain just turns into, like, oatmeal afterwards. So that's what Cherry's about to get hit with. And he finds out that in this little private section of these sewers is just like a mob of just ghouls and feral ghouls. And Hick finds Cherry, and by trying to quiet her, like, feral ghouls get sent throughout the entire facility of ET and EQ where they're staying. And he has to fight through all these people while Cherry's like knocked, like drugged out on his back or something like that. And then the episode ends with like a fun interaction, the two of them. They're outside, just chilling. He's like draining, there's like bags of Radaway. And he's like draining all this radiation out of her arm. And she asks him, hey, why would these people all be like so content to like this dude like spend all the time like killing their brain cells in the sewers? And Nick says, well, like out here in the wasteland, people are getting shot in the leg, having to find food and all this other junk. Well, what's the point in doing all that when you can just pretend none of it exists? So that's kind of the main theme here. Is like you can't really. It's pretty like generic message, I know, but I feel like when you give like a theme to an episode, it allows you to like to work in a much better timeline of all the events and junk like that. So yeah. So that's episode 4. Episode 5 is one that I've not worked on hard. I don't really know what to do here for, so I'm just going to give you the quickest synopsis. Hick and Cherry, they find some weird group of people in a settlement, and they're very strange folks. They're like a cult, sort of, but they're not too weird, so Cherry starts doing more and more investigation. Hick tells her not to, but she still does anyway. And they find this giant super mutant below the settlement, some giant superhuman behemoth that's been like giving these people like food and water, some type of junk like that. The cult's been praising, and they caught a big old rampage. The giant superhuman behemoth destroys the whole settlement, and Nick and Cherry, they just leave. So I need to work on this episode severely more, because like I don't know how to do with it, because I want to like extend the series for 10 episodes here, like episode 0 to 10. So we could just make it 10 episodes, not 11 technically. We could have episode 0 be episode 1, but I don't like that view. Point being, I just need to work on episode 5 a lot more. But episode 6 is where things actually like start picking up, and they really start getting like really good. So in this episode, Hick is like on his bike, and it opens up with Hick on his bike, and he's like thinking about like all the events happening around, getting close to Cherry and all this other junk, until eventually he starts. Cherry like starts warning him, hey, buddy, we got some problems, and there's this giant vertibird of the Brotherhood of Steel following him. And they're like asking, please turn over your vehicle, because they want his bike so they can take his technology and use it in their army or something like that. And so he says no, and they start getting this big intense chase. And the chaser would play the song, I believe, Riding on the Wind, by Judas Priest. Oh, by the way, this reminded me, by the way. In episode 4, of the series, when they're in the drug place, Hick would open a door, and inside were these people doing this, essentially. Like, Walk the Dinosaur. Walk the Dinosaur is going to be a segment in each part, like, seriously. I will find a way to work in Walk the Dinosaur, like some people listening to that song, into each part if I can. So yeah, that's the plan anyway. So back to episode 6. So they get this big old chase, and Hick is trying to reach for a rifle bag that's on the side of his motorcycle, and he can't quite get it. And Cherry's trying to grab it too, but he's like arguing with her, and they're both like struggling over trying to like help the other person trying to get it. And the thing like falls off the bike, and so they have to like run back. This big old chase keeps on going. The song Judas Priest is playing, whatever you want to call it. Until eventually they pick up the bag and he pulls it out, and it's an anti-material rifle that Hick's been holding on to the entire time. It was even alluded to in episode 0. He held the bag with him and he says, anyone touches this, you're dead. So the motorcycle crashes. Not motorcycle crash, but the helicopter Vertibird crashes down onto him, and they're going to crash too, so they both tuck and roll off the bike or something like that, and they crash. The bike gets damaged, and they both are struggling to get up. Except one guy in the Vertibird lives and survives, and so he's like about to shoot them with his laser rifle, and then and they're a chick and Cherry just talking. They don't know he's there yet, and right he's about to pull the trigger, gets his head smacked over with a goddamn guitar. And it turns out a bunch of old people, like a little small band, is there, and they show up. And Cherry's like, bro, I gotta be dreaming. I think we just got saved by my uncle, or some stupid comment like that. So they find out that this little band of people called the Stars Below the Sky, this wandering band of musicians, who, fun fact, are actually the members of the Inner Circle. Not Inner Circle, the 16 Soldiers. They just left a while ago. And they're older fellas, and they're wandering around just playing music. And the whole theme of this episode, I haven't worked on many details about it besides just the music and junk like that. But the whole theme of this episode is for Hick and Cherry to start working together as partners, because Hick wants to just boss her around, and Cherry wants to actually have an involvement, but she also doesn't really trust Hick's abilities, which is what she should do. It's just really a whole episode about them working together and being a team, going through some obstacles and junk like that. And yeah, so that's just, I have once again another episode I need to work on the details of, but episode ends with everyone being chill and happy and junk like that. Inner Circle are chilling, and Hick is eyeing a guitar or something, and he's saying, hey bro, I know you can play this thing, by the way you're eyeing it. And he says, fine, I'll play some garbage like that. And this is because it adds a little more depth to his character. It says that he learned it from a friend. We learn who this friend is in part 4, once again, where his whole backstory gets revealed. So yeah, from episode 6 and on, we start learning a little bit more about Hick and junk like that. And as the series is getting on, Hick is growing closer and closer to Cherry, and starting to reveal himself more. He still doesn't believe that he actually cares for her. He just believes he's just doing this for the hell of it. There's no real point in anything. He can drop her off whenever he wants. He doesn't matter. So then episode 7 comes up, and episode 7 is, it's got nothing too big to it. It's generally just, they still need one more part to fix up his motorcycle before they can drive to Seattle and finish this whole season off. Big problem is, though, that they don't have that part, except a small little caravan, like a family caravan says they do. And so they agree to travel with them. They get involved with some death claws and junk like that. And the big end of this episode is that they find out they're delivering parts. The caravan was delivering parts to this big evil mafia guy. Not mafia guy, the same before, but he was like a gang member essentially. And Hick, he doesn't really have much tolerance for anybody who's killing people at all. He doesn't have any tolerance for that, so he kills him. And we later find out in part 4 that this screws over the family business, but Cherry doesn't know about these family caravan getting screwed over much till later on, so whatever. Point being, this kind of illustrates Hick's character as someone who just has no tolerance for evil, which gets explained much more in part 4, which I'm going to say a lot because everything gets explained in part 4 for the most part. But anyway, so this is where the big thing, because in each part there's always these two standout things in the format. There's always an episode 0 that has nothing to really do with the main story but gives background to characters, and then we have a 2-part episodes. And episodes 8 and 9 are usually this. Episodes 8 and 9 or 9 and 10 are usually this way. It's episodes that are part of a larger story. So episode 8 and this is episode 8 and 9 are called "Don't Tread the Bear" because it has to do with the NCR. So they're back to the older settlement. It's not the same one Hick started out in episode 0, but they get back to another settlement. And when Hick wakes up in an NCR hospital, and Cherry's running around the place trying to get him out of there. He's like in like some wheelchair or some garbage like that. And he's getting wheeled around, and they're fighting off the NCR or something like that. Except eventually they get cornered, and they're about to get killed. And Hick jumps up, and he says, like, some type of code. And they all stop, and, like, the main commander puts them into interrogations. And the whole parts 8 and part 9 are a start of just telling a story about how Hick and Cherry would happen to get them to these events. While also giving more light to Hick's character. Because what essentially gets revealed here is that Hick knew somebody, or was, in the NCR for a time, and while he was there, he got told this code, and we find out that his buddy told him this code if he ever got in trouble with the NCR, but he was actually screwing him over, because the code he told them was essentially a code they gave for caravan people, to tell them, hey, that we're part of the NCR, and we are trading goods, and the caravan he had was a prostitution, so essentially he was saying, hey, don't worry guys, I'm a whore, or something like that. This is kind of funny, I guess. Kind of a bit of a gag. It gives a bit more of a joke when you find out his not his best friend, well, Hick's friend tells him this code, so it gives more depth to his character later on when you find out about him in part 4. Point being, part 8 and part 9 are just Hick and Cherry. They get involved in some big old attack on the NCR. And the big thing that stands out is in episode 9. Hick is on a bridge, and he tells Cherry to get going, and he falls into it, and he gets knocked out. And Cherry, unlike the first episode 3, where she charges back in to save him because she has no idea where else to go, whereas this time, she's showing in there for her own, like, compassion, I guess you could say. She's jumping in there because she wants to save Hick because she cares for him. And she jumps in, she performs CPR on him and stuff like that, and saves his life. And Hick, like, in this scene, essentially realizes that Cherry is different from everyone else he's met before. She's fully different. And that she was fully willing to sacrifice herself for somebody else. And that may not sound like uncommon in Fallout universe, but Hick's been traveling around the world for like 4 years. He went to Colorado and he saw the Legion and how heartless they were. He went to Nevada and saw terrible people there. He's traveled all over, and he's not really seen much hope for the future of the world. So seeing this happen with Cherry is this big spark and this big scene for him essentially learning that Cherry is more and better and different than everyone else he's met. And she's an actually nice person because she sacrificed herself to save him. So, and I may even change part 3 a little bit, episode 3, so that she has more of a reason to save Hick, not because of her own, like, not for her own safety and not, like, to help him out. Because it's this big moment in part 9, episode 9, where it really just shows the length of how their relationship has developed, where Cherry is willing to sacrifice herself to save Hick. So they both leave, and it's also kind of slightly alluded to in this episode that Hick did, in fact, work for the NCR. Because they even like point out that his hat, he wears this military cap all the time, and there's this missing stamp on both that and his jacket right here that shows that there was probably an NCR logo there. But point being, all that's going to be developed much later on in part 9 and part 4. Anyway, so then episode 10, this is the only part in the entire series of Fallout where parts 1 and part 2 aren't episodes 9 and 10. Because episode 10 is its own unique episode. This is the big scene, and the reason why it's separate is because how big it is on Hick and Cherry's fault. Because this is supposed to be the episode where essentially Hick realizes that he does in fact care for Cherry. He's been convincing himself this whole entire time that he doesn't, that he's just doing this out of necessity. Episode 9, he kind of was like sort of saying, hey, I kind of do. But he hasn't had that reason to fully like come out and admit that to himself yet. But this is the episode where it does. So the premise is that Hick, he throws up some blood or some kind of volatile substance outside, and he starts getting worried that he's probably going to die, or he may be sick and dying or some type of thing like that, and they got to get some medicine, or else he's going to heal over, and Cherry's never going to get to Seattle, or some garbage like that. So they both, against Cherry's wishes, they both go into this mental asylum to try and find some medicine. And while in there, though, they find out there's a guy running the place. He's very fucked in the head. And you find out more and more the horrors of what he's been doing here. This guy who's fucked in the head, it turns out, was actually someone Hick affected in the past a while ago. And he's very upset with him because right now he's so like insane that he's been capturing women of some sort and turning them into depraved, insane monsters. That roam around the asylum. It's got like it's a very creepy episode. It plays like happy songs and like scary situations. But the big scene that's supposed to stand out here is that Hick and Cherry, they get separated. Hick's trying to find her. He's very worried for her. It's the first time in the series where he shows an emotion that isn't just anger or content or something like that. He's genuinely scared for her and fearful what's going on. So finally this big final scene happens where he finds that Cherry, but she's in the room with this monster of the mental asylum who is going to turn her into another one of the monsters he's been killing throughout the entire facility so far. And the door is locked and he has no way in. And so Hick's freaking out and junk like that. And he's about to like cut off her arm or something garbage like that. And so what he does is he punches through the wall and he pulls out the circuitry to the door in order to get in. And that's a big powerful scene, I guess. Except in doing so, what happens here is that the guy, the big doctor, he kind of freaks out and he yanks his like not hacksaw, it's a ripper. It's a weapon involved. It's like a miniature chainsaw, and it cuts off Cherry's half of her finger right here. Like her pinky and ring finger are cut in half for the most part. And the reason why I want to do this is because in a lot of other series, what happens is that people like their characters will just go through this season, and they'll come out the other end, and they'll have like changes to like their character maybe, but they don't have any like real physical like really big changes. And the reason why this is powerful is because I'll explain. But the finish the episode out, he kills the doctor in a very violent manner, and he scrambles to try and help Cherry, and she's just sitting there in silence and shock because she lost her 2 fingers here, and she's like crying. But eventually she starts bursting out in tears, and she starts hugging Hick. And unlike the first COVID, unlike the second episode where she hugged Hick, it's actually, he doesn't throw her away. He fully accepts. And in the background, the doctor was listening to a radio, and on the radio it plays the song She's Got You. And it's kind of a bit on the nose, but this whole scene is supposed to demonstrate essentially to Hick that he has truly fallen for Cherry. She has grabbed him, I guess you could say, and he's not letting go. He cares for her now than he ever has, and it's clear now that he actually does care for her. She has caught him, I guess you could say. And from now on, the big part of the series that he's going to forever struggle with is that Cherry has lost these halves of her finger, and he's always going to look at that and always just look at his failure, his inability, and his fault for causing her this grief. And that is part 1 for the most part. Camera zooms out, and that is part 1 for the most part. So yeah, that is Fallout Part 1, I guess you could say. A lot of other... I know I've rambled about a bunch of other garbage today in this video of Danny's log, I guess you could say, but yeah. I don't really know. All those times I said I was going to throw an overlay, I'm probably not going to do that. I know it's lazy of me, but I'm really just doing this for my own enjoyment. Like, I was sitting there, and I was playing, like, a game, like Jedi Fallen Order or something, and I was also working on a game called Oniro, which I'll talk about also later on. I'll talk about Oniro and, like, Hearthal, Realms of Axis, Breakthrough, like, Part 2, 3, 4, and 5 of Fallout. The camera keeps falling. I'll keep talking about all that junk at some point. Yeah, that was the first episode of Danny's Log. I'm doubting anybody's ever going to watch this all the way through. But yeah, I just really want to make this thing for my own enjoyment, to pass time, to kill time, to give like an actual log of the ideas in my head. So, yeah. That's that. See ya.